You are listening to Young Black Equestrians, the podcast, with your hosts, Abriana Johnson and Caitlin Gooch. As Black businesses deal with systemic financial and racial injustices, the Black Equestrian Network serves as a central location to highlight the services and businesses owned and operated by Black horse people. Whether you identify as a cowboy, equestrian, horseman, or horsewoman, the Black Equestrian Network is an industry green book aiming to empower, uplift, and highlight Black equestrians across the globe. To learn more about this powerful resource, visit www.blackequestriannetwork.org. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Young Black Equestrians with your hosts, Abriana Johnson
and Caitlin Gooch.
Today we have Celine here, or otherwise known on Instagram as the Plus Size Equestrian, and we are going to hear from her about her experiences in the horse industry. So welcome, Celine.
Welcome. So happy to be here.
All right. So let's just go ahead and get started. Just tell us about yourself, where you're located, and what you ride.
Yes, so I'm located in San Francisco, California, although occasionally also in Massachusetts when I'm at school. I've been riding since I was a little kid. I've dabbled in a lot of different disciplines. I started out 100 jumper, and then I did some eventing when I went to boarding school, and then I lived in France for a while and did l'équitation classique there. And then I studied in Mongolia and dabbled in traditional Mongolian riding. And then I came back and just did English pleasure. And then recently I've gotten really into side saddle. I love it. It's honestly the best thing in the world. So I love that. And along with I'm happy to basically try anything I possibly can.
Okay, we're gonna have to back up.
Right. Are you sure the list doesn't go on?
Right. So let's start from the top. Okay. I heard France. What, and why were you in France? And what made you do French horse things?
Yeah. When I was 17, I studied in France. So I lived there my junior year of high school with an amazing host family. And I wasn't going to stop riding. I loved riding. And it actually turned out to be a lot easier to get to the barn in France. Mm-hmm. So I went down and was like, hi, I'm American. Can I ride? And the French have this wild system. They have a very bureaucratic system of riding. You can't just take lessons. You have to, if you start as a child up until I think you're 12, they put you on a pony. You can only ride ponies. And then you go up through different levels. So you can't just start. It's very strange. So they put me in galop simple, I think, which is their levels. I kept getting laughed at because it turns out I come from a hunt seat background. My instructor kept yelling at me why are you so far forward? And I was like, this is correct where I'm from. He could not fathom that hunt seat exists. He just couldn't fathom it because it doesn't exist in France. And I had so much trouble with that.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a good experience.
I don't think we've had anybody who's outside of the person who lives internationally, Lydia, that has ridden internationally and experienced the horse industry in different cultures. Okay, so we got to France. Now, next we need to talk about Mongolia.
I did pick Mongolia because horses. And I lived with an amazing host family who were, nomadic herders. And obviously there was a massive language barrier. They didn't speak English. I speak 5 words of Mongolian. But I got across to them I ride. And they were so excited because they had never hosted an American before, and they didn't think of Americans as riding. And so they brought a horse, and they brought me this lovely pinto mare with a little colt, who was just not even weaned. I would ride her around, and we'd spend a lot of the day herding the sheep and the goats. And so it was really fun. I got to go hang out, just ride across the steppe, which was great. I mean, horsemanship is just so different. They're not kept in barns. You know, you basically they go to the herd and pull the horse out of the herd and saddle it and go. So they're definitely not, it's not like the polished arena riding that we do. It's like, you know, if that horse acts up, you deal with it, you handle it. But I had such a fun time. I heard my Mongolian host family telling other Mongolian families, like, my American rides, does yours ride? Which I thought was cute. And they would bring their friends to like look at me on the horse. They'd be like, look, she's on. It was so funny to me. And they'd never seen someone with curly hair. I had really long curly hair. I had like long 3C hair, down to my back, straightened. And they'd never seen anyone with hair like mine. You know, they're between Russia and China, so they'd seen plenty of Russians, but no one who looked like me. And so I remember one day I was washing my hair, and because they live in gers, which is the Mongolian word for yurts, you bathe in a bucket, basically. So I was like washing my hair in a bucket. The entire host family came to wash my hair with me because they had never touched hair like mine, and they just wanted to it was so fascinating. And I didn't mind because at this point I'd lived with them and I was really close to them and they were so kind to me. But it was fascinating having been with people who'd like never seen someone who looked like me. They'd never seen, this was the summer, so I was like 3 shades darker and tan too. They'd never seen anyone like with darker skin.
How did you initially get into horses?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always loved animals. I was obsessed with dogs, like from the time I could first start talking. I would like point out every dog on the street. And then I obviously live in the city, so I wasn't around a lot of horses. But my father used to work in Italy, and when he would work there, we would stay with his friends. I think it must have been business partners as well. But we would stay with them. They had a gentleman's farm in Tuscany where they bred Hanoverians for show. And I think it was like maybe 18 months the first time we went. So just walking, and we went several times over the years. Every summer he worked there, he would just take us, my mom and myself, and they would let me go see the horses and be around the horses, and I fell in love. I honest to God, remember the first time I saw a horse, and I just, like, the first time they let me hold the lead rope, and I have a picture of it. I was 2, I have a pacifier in my mouth. I, like, don't even come up to the horse's knee. I'm, like, really little. They let me hold this broodmare's lead rope. And just, like, from that instant, I just knew. I was like, this is it. This is my first love. This is what I'm going to do forever. And it was just a strange thing for a 2-year-old to feel, but I was just from that moment in love with it. And they used to, not anymore unfortunately, but Golden Gate Park, like the big park in San Francisco, used to have a barn. And so my mom would sometimes take me to ride. And I was really little. I think I was in preschool, so I wasn't really taking lessons, but they would sit me on top of Rainbow was the horse's name. He was a big quarter horse and so old. He would literally like, close his eyes while he was walking around. And they would lead me around on him. And I just remember feeling like the most powerful person in the world. My feet didn't even reach the stirrups, it was a Western style. I was holding onto the horns. Like a breeze could have blown me off his back, but I felt like the most powerful person. I was so happy. They'd lead me around the yard, at the slowest walk, and it was just the best thing in the world. So obviously riding lessons are expensive and really time consuming if you're in the city. So I begged for a horse for years. My parents were like, no, we can't afford it. But when I turned 10, my mom was like, look, when you turn 10, we'll get you riding lessons. So I started taking weekly lessons at a barn about 45 minutes from my house. It was a 100-seat barn. And the love just continued from there. I think my mom thought I would grow out of it. And by the time I was 10, when I was still begging for a horse literally every single day, she realized that the best thing to do was to give in. And I'm so grateful to her because I know, we weren't wealthy growing up. So I'm really grateful that she made the sacrifice and took the time out of her week to drive me 45 minutes there and back.
Yeah.
So that I could, learn to ride.
Yeah, that's awesome. We shout out to our parents, man.
Right.
Yeah.
The things that they do for us to pursue the random things we want to do.
Exactly. Especially all the horse parents who are not horse people themselves.
Right. But yeah, shout out to those parents. Shout out to them. What are some of the challenges that you have faced coming up, learning all these disciplines, just being an overall participant in the horse industry?
Yeah, I think for me, there were no other Black kids at any barn I rode at growing up. There weren't even, I am very light. I was the darkest person there. I mean, like a lot of our grooms were from Mexico, and people would assume I was Mexican, or that I was like, I remember getting asked all the time if like the grooms were my dad, like one of the grooms was my dad. Which, you know, like, no. I remember saying no, and I didn't understand really why people were asking that at first as a kid. Because I was like, that's not my dad. Like, my dad is a 6 foot tall, super dark Black guy. Like, he doesn't look anything, you know, like this other man. The grooms were great and they were wonderful and lovely, but I was like, you know, that's not my dad. Why do you think it's my dad? Oh, because you look alike. And I was, no, we don't. But, you know, so that was strange. I was literally like the only person of color riding. Sometimes I would see someone else and it would be like, oh, like a beacon in the storm. It was so nice. But, you know, growing up in a 100-jumper barn, it's a very particular climate, I think. And I've since found a lot more sort of accepting and open places to ride. I no longer ride at that barn, and it's made a whole world of difference. But particularly when I was growing up in these sort of very rigid barns, there were not a lot of people who looked like me. People who looked like me were not treated well. We were seen as the help. People who looked like me, you know, I was never a small kid. I was not overweight as a child, but I was really tall. So there was kind of like, oh, you're bigger than I thought you were, and that sort of thing growing up, which was never fun to hear as a child. That sort of thing. France was a different challenge. I do speak French. I spoke it fluently at that point, a little less so now. Mm-hmm. But even when you speak a language, you don't necessarily know the horse terms in that language. So he would be like, you know, telling me technical terms, which I knew in English, but didn't know in French. So that was challenging. I'd be like, can you define? He didn't speak English, so he'd have to like give me the definition in French while I was writing. You know, he'd be like, put your, you know, like whatever, I just totally forgot the word I'm looking for. Leg yield is the word I'm looking for. Leg yield, but then that's a totally different word in French. And I was like, what? He's like, how do you not know that? I was like, I don't know what you're saying to me.
Right.
So then I would learn that, you know, then I learned that. I think it's been more challenging as I've gotten older. I got kicked off of a team so I had been on the team, and then I had been away for a bit. And I was still on the team, like I was on the team roster. I was registered to compete. And then we had gotten a new instructor like a new coach in the interim. I hadn't met him, and so he was like, why don't you come down for tryouts just so I can see you ride? Like, you're not trying out, you know, I just want to get to know you a little bit better. And I was like, sure, perfect. They saw me, and hurtful things were whispered behind my back, and my team captain, who I love and I'm friends with, comes up to me and is like, they don't want to let you ride because they say you're too fat. And she was like, you know, we're obviously really upset about that, you know, as your teammates and your friends. So they pushed them to let me get on for, you know, the 15-minute like tryout, even though I wasn't trying out, just so he could see me ride. And he was like, oh, because I didn't grow up competing, so the level I was competing, you know, so it's divided by division on the team, so like each person is competing in based on points. It's like a whole thing. So in the division that I was riding in, he's like, you're the best we have. You're actually the only one ready to compete, but I can't let you ride because of your weight. You're going to make my horses go lame. But the thing is, he didn't say this to me. I found out later when I asked him, why didn't you say this to my face, that he was afraid I would react badly, which is, you know, for a grown man to say that to like a 20-year-old woman, right? What do you think I'm going to do to you?
Like angry Black
so
girl.
That was terrible. It was ridiculous. And I'm sure, like, how would race not at least play a part in that? But So he refused to talk to me. He wouldn't email me directly. I had to like go through all these other people. I ended up sort of forcing his hand, and the arrangement, he didn't let me compete because he was like, well, you're not practicing, so you can't compete. Even though we had no one on the team competing in my levels, we were losing points every show. Because the thought of me on his part, he's like, you'll make them go lame. I was like, at that point I was leasing a pony. It was totally a thick pony, but totally fine carrying me. And they came up with a solution that I could practice at another barn separate from all my teammates and then compete for them. Before I reached the solution, he proposed a solution through another person, of course, he wouldn't talk to me directly, that I could work at the barn until I had fixed the problem, which he's like, you're good with horses, so you can work at the barn until you fix the problem. And I was like, I'm not gonna work for like free labor for nothing. Like, I've worked for lessons in the past, but like he just wanted me to work for him until I was skinny, which is, I mean, what a concept.
I wish like a group of people who could just go and just hand it to these people who think like this and come out their mouth saying these things.
Yeah, I sign me up. Cause
Right.
It was astounding. He was like, well, you know, if we're going to have you ride on the teams, he basically forced his hand, and he was like, we need to find a horse that can carry you, because none of our horses can carry you. I'm like, you're 18, hand high, warm blood, can't carry, whatever. He's like, it has to be at least a draft cross. I was like, I've ridden so many non-draft crosses. I love draft crosses, but I was like, I was leasing a Mustang who was like 14.2 at the time. I've ridden like a 13-hand high Mongolian pony. You know, like I've grown up riding horses of all sizes and shapes who are not draft crosses. And I didn't make them go lame. He was terrified I'd make them go lame in 2 lessons a week. It was so strange.
I am
so
in
bizarre.
awe. I am in awe.
I was in awe too, and I think it was wild. Sorry, continue, please.
No, I can't even get it out. I'm in awe of the audacity of this person.
I think, and part of it for me was the older white man wouldn't, like, I would have the audacity in general to look at someone and be like, you're over our weight limit, you can't, to look at them and be like, you're too fat to, I mean, just to, by sight, I walked in. So there's that. But second of all, that this older white man was too scared to come talk to me face to face about the issue that he had with me. So he had to send another 20-year-old woman to, like, he's like, well, I thought you might react badly, you know, and I'm like, if you have a problem with somebody, you sit them down like an adult and talk to them respectfully, right? I mean, that's what my mom taught me to do. I just that for me was as much of an insult as the whole situation.
Yeah, that's insane to me. I've never heard anything like that. Like,
it was wild. And my instructor in California, she was like ready to throw hands. She's like, I'm gonna fly out there.
I'm ready to throw hands now. Okay, and this happened in the past. Like, what's his name?
Right.
we'll make him.
I don't even remember. He's still the coach there, and I like blocked out his. I don't even remember, which is terrible. I should, but I think.
Well, I think that
was an eye opener for me.
Yeah, and I think that says that entire situation is a testament to your strength and resilience in the face of controversy or unacceptance of somebody. I mean, I don't even know why. Well, I know why he had the issue, but it was not warranted, you know, just in the face of adversity. I mean, you're clearly, when you know what you're passionate about, you know, it doesn't matter what other people say.
It was so ridiculous. I cried, and I called my mom crying, and my teammates were like, we're not going to let this. My teammates were actually the ones who were like, don't let this happen. And it was a fight, like a tooth and nail fight, which was so ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
It was just such a ridiculous situation. And it did, honestly, I mean, that's why my Instagram is titled the way it is. It did inspire me in a lot of ways to be more vocal about what it's like to be somebody who doesn't fit the image of like a skinny white equestrian, because there's so many of us who don't fit that image, you know, like regardless of race, regardless of body size, like there's so many people who don't fit that mold.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important that we are able to have our voices heard, and it's so important that there's a visibility. I think I never saw anyone who looked like me growing up riding, and that was really hard. It really is important that you have representation of yourself in the media. And I am disabled, and I'm a person of color, and I am, you know, not a small, skinny person. And so it was important for me, like, obviously, am I a big influencer? No, but if one child sees one of my posts and says, oh, she kind of looks like me, you know, or oh, she's disabled too, and she's riding and she's doing the best she can, then that's a success for me. You know, I just would love to help little kids feel not so alone in the horse world.
Yeah. That is the essence of why we're doing this in the first place. Because
I know, I found your channel. I found your podcast and your Instagram and everything, and I was so excited. I think I was so excited. I mean, it's such a wonderful thing that you guys do.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is so important. It is so important that we have visibility.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, like, I know from a couple of the comments that we've gotten, like, it'll be like, oh, why do you have to, like, make it known that you're Black? Why does it have to be young Black equestrians? Why can't it be all equestrians? And I'm like, okay, all lives matter.
Right.
It's not that when you have an issue. When you have an issue, it's that Black girl or that fat girl, or like, you have no issue using that descriptor or placing descriptors on us when you have a problem. So if I want to embrace that and say, hey, you know what? I am that Black girl, and I'm gonna ride this horse's ass, and you are gonna see how much I can ride, you know, that's what I'm gonna do.
Exactly. It's not, it's such a funny, like, oh, well, why do you have to, like, yeah, why do you have to call attention to the differences? Because I'm not calling attention to them. It's because society has made it very clear that I'm different and I'm not the norm here. And I want to make it okay to be not the norm.
Right.
And so, yeah, like my channel or my, like all my social media is about the fact that I am plus size, I'm very open, I'm disabled, you know, I have chronic health conditions, and they affect my riding massively, which is that's a whole story. that's a whole story. But like, because if one person sees that and says, and they feel a little bit more okay with themselves, they feel a little bit less alone than I did as a kid, then, I mean, that's important to me. You know, everyone should have a community, and everyone deserves that. Everyone deserves to not feel ostracized because of what they look like, or, you know, the way that their body performs, which is, it's so important to me that there are people out there who are very open and very proud about being like, I'm a Black equestrian, and it's important to me, and like, I am putting my voice out there, and, you know, my content is labeled as being by and for people of color, and I love that. I think it's so important.
Yeah, that is the truth. That is the truth.
And if we aren't advocating for ourselves, who is going to do it? Because clearly discrimination would not be going on if certain people were doing it already. This wouldn't be happening.
No one else is going to do it for us. You know, so yeah, I mean, that's the unfortunate truth of it, is that, I mean, I'm sure there will be allies once more voices get to be heard, but right now, there are not that many voices being heard, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that there was a Black equestrian community until sort of all this happened to me, and I started really searching, because I was like, oh man, I need a community that isn't going to be like this. You know, I want to feel more at home riding. I want riding to be fun again. And I didn't, I searched for it. I was like, this is amazing. Look at all these amazing people. But like, there's so many people who don't know that this exists. And yeah, like who's gonna push for this? Who's going to push for equality in the show ring? Who's gonna, like, there's one of the girls on my team. She's no longer on the team. She moved on, but one of the most incredible writers I have ever met, and so beautiful. Like, she's just, in terms, she's one of those people who's just like a brilliant, gorgeous, talented writer, like just so wonderful, and so kind. And she would never get, because we competed on feed equitation, right, which is quite, it's pretty easy for judges to be biased.
Right.
She was dark, very dark, had long braids, never placed more than second, even if you were watching and you were like, she objectively had the best round. And that was so frustrating. That was so frustrating, watching that and being like, she's so talented,
And some people
it's so unfair.
Some people will hear that story and say, well, that just means you need to work harder. No, that's not what that means. And we all know that. And I just feel like it's
exactly. I mean, it's not about her. It's about somebody else's problem,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's so often the case.
And so I think that, the only way to combat that is to continue to represent for yourself and just put out good examples of quality horsemanship, quality riding, and quality leadership as we kind of reach out to other people that are like us and try to develop this sense of community that spans disciplines. We just have to make these connections so that it doesn't continue to propagate, that feeling that you have in yourself of loneliness, of, being criticized and not being treated fairly. We just want to kind of foster that community that provides the support for the inevitable, because everybody's going to have to, every person of color is going to have to deal with that reality, because that's the society we live in. Racism doesn't just only exist in,
does not end outside the barn. It continues right in.
Right.
Yeah. And I think honestly, and the people I've met from the Black equestrian community have been so warm and so welcoming, and it was like a slap in the face to me, because I had never, like, the best kind of slap in the face, a warm hug maybe, because I never had that, in the equestrian community growing up. I had never had someone be like, oh, cause I went to Bill Pickett Rodeo, and when they came to Oakland last summer, which is a Black rodeo, and I had never seen so many Black people on horses. And I went up to people and I was like, look, I've never ridden Western, but I really just want to be at a barn where there are Black people. And they were so wonderful. And they were like, come and we'll show you, how to ride Western. And I was like, that's amazing. People were so warm and wonderful. Of course, right after that, I ended up like snapping a ligament in my leg, and still haven't managed to do that because it's quarantine now, of course. So hopefully after all of this is over, I will be able to become more integrated into that community. But just what a wonderful thing to have people who are so welcoming and so warm. The horse community overall needs more of that.
Yeah, completely agree, 100%.
Yeah. What would you say to these trainers who might watch, and just what would you say to them about how to talk and just be a regular old trainer around people who are different and don't fit that mold that you talked about earlier? What would you say to them? Because it happens too many times. Oh, my bad. It just happens too many times that people say, oh, well, I've had this trainer and they discriminated against me, or they said these things. And it just needs to stop at some point.
Absolutely. I actually have an amazing trainer now. She's a white woman. And she's so wonderful about this. I think the thing is, don't look at somebody and see what they aren't, see what they are, right? And take that person. I mean, just look at all your students as students, and be like, don't look at it as the black student or fat. Just be like, this is my student. And like every student, they have, we all have different needs and we all have different backgrounds and, whatever. But like, she's so wonderful about meeting me where I am. Like I said, I'm disabled. It does affect my writing. So also I was rehabbing, a torn ligament. So that was, that was exciting. And she's so wonderful about just letting me be me, and she's the most wonderful, incredible horsewoman. And also she's been just a great person for me in my life, and someone who I really look up to and genuinely care about. And so I think my advice to any trainer is, take your students as students. Don't treat them differently because they're Black or they're disabled, like really just see your student as a student. We have unique needs. If there's disability, talk to your student. I'm open about, what I can or can't do, and that changes on a day-to-day basis. So if I'm having a bad day, I'm like, look, today is not the day to be, really working on new skills because my body will not, I'll fall off, I'll faint or whatever. So maybe today is a day we just like walk and work on leg yield with the walk or something super slow and simple that's safe for me to do. Or maybe today is just a day we work on the ground because there's so much to learn about horses on the ground too. Mm-hmm. It's so much about just being respectful of every student, of every person you encounter, just being respectful of them as a person. Honestly, riding with her has really helped my self-confidence, even though she doesn't look like me, because she's willing to throw in for me. She was so indignant on my behalf when I told her what happened with the other trainer. She was so, she was a pillar of strength for me. So anyone who's in the Bay Area, like, please contact me. I would love to pass on her name and information if anyone is looking for a trainer. She's an incredibly talented horsewoman and just an incredibly wonderful, beautiful person. So.
Oh, that's good. I know there's a lot of people, that have bounced from barn to trainer to, whatever, from school to outside of school, just trying to find somewhere where they feel like home. And I've always said, like, you go to where you see someone familiar, but it's also a feeling where you feel that familiarity. The person doesn't have to look like you, but
exactly.
it feels like home, and that makes you comfortable. People go where they feel comfortable, and it doesn't have to be an all black barn. Like, I'm gonna be more comfortable there. No, it's what makes you feel the best about yourself and about your riding. And I feel like that's all that really matters to people.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like you're going to face opposition out in the horse world just because by virtue of, it's just unfortunate. It is what it is. But if you can have a home base barn where you are accepted and you are encouraged and pushed to do your best in a way that is helpful and welcoming, then that's so helpful for me. And I've had more than one experience like that. My last year of boarding school, I leased 2 horses on a woman's property, and she lived right by the school every day. I go over to her barn. I would, do the barn chores, ride her horses, work with the horses. And that was a huge experience for me as someone who'd never owned a horse, being able to go over every day and do horse care. And I became so close to her. I love her so, so much. And she wasn't as much of an instructor for me, but more of like a mentor. And eventually she became like family just because she gave me that space to be around the horses. She put trust and faith in me, to let me work with her horses, to let me ride, to let me, work on the ground with them, to just let me groom them if I was having a bad day. High school's hard, so just let me groom them for hours if I was having a bad day. And I will always be so grateful for that, because again, that was like, this is a home, you know, it helped me build my confidence. It helped give me a sort of a base, like, okay, I can do this no matter what other people are saying. Like, this is, you know, this is something I'm capable of.
Yeah. So I feel like we covered the next two questions. But what vision do you have for yourself in the future in the horse industry? Are you, you know, just looking to do it leisurely or more consistency?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I would love for my health to get to a place where I am able to ride at a higher level than I am now. I've had a lot of health setbacks. It's not even really that level. It's more just like, I would like to be able to ride sort of more than I have in the past several months. I have a severe neurological sleep disorder, among other chronic illnesses. So my body will just when I talked about my issues in France, my French instructor thought I was a terrible rider. One, because I had an American position and he could not fathom that anything was different. You know, that there were different styles of riding, the French style. Two, because this was before I was diagnosed and recently after this neurological disorder onset. So I would be riding and envision, okay, trying to jump a course, right? You're riding, a lot of these horses were like warm bloods, pretty high strung. You're riding pretty hot, big, you know, not like super hot, but like a pretty hot horse over a course, and your vision distorts and your hearing distorts, which I did not realize were part of this neurological condition. I didn't know what was going on, but it's terrifying to ride and your senses just go. Like sometimes I'd fully lose vision, but like, you know, or like they would just distort to a point where I'm like, I can't really hear what's going on. My depth perception totally gone. So it created this massive fear of jumping for me, because like if you're trying to jump and suddenly you can't like see the jumps properly, my condition is pretty similar to narcolepsy. So I'll get like sudden muscle weakness, but also I'll fall asleep spontaneously. I've fallen asleep while riding horses before, which is really a very scary thing if you are moving faster than a walk and you don't know what's happening. Like I know what's happening now. I didn't know what was happening. So, you know, it was terrifying, and it knocked my confidence, because I thought it was normal. I was like, everyone experiences this, so I am a terrible rider. I will never be a good horse person. Turns out not everyone experiences that, and I was doing the best I could in a very bizarre situation. But so I think for me, it's kind of learning to trust myself again, and as well as sort of getting back to where I was before in terms of capability, building up, you know, my physical strength. Like I said, I recovered from an injury, so I need to get my strength back. And then in terms of like working with a disabled body, like learning how to ride in a way that is, I have chronic pain, so like is it less painful for me, is, you know, like I would really like to be able to compete, and I would really like to be able to ride at a high level, you know, and be an experienced horsewoman, but it's learning how to do that in a way that is safe and feasible for me. I found side saddles a lot more comfortable for me for my chronic pain, so like that's great. I love it. It involves a little bit of thinking outside the box. It involves really patient trainers who are willing to work with me and also, you know, think sort of outside of the box, and who are willing to do some sort of unorthodox things, and who are able to listen to me when I tell them, you know, today I'm super capable, or like today, you know, I've been falling asleep walking around, and, you know, I'm going to fall asleep on the horse, so let's just walk. Like, yeah. Learning limits, learning how to be safe. And I'm really, you know, at some point in the future, I would love to open a barn and just let kids come and be with horses, you know, kids who need a place to be safe and to feel safe. Like, you should just open a young black equestrian barn. Just,
yeah.
I mean, I'm so down. I'm so down.
We just need
I think it's so.
Just a what's it called? A franchise.
That would be amazing. Yeah, we, you know, definitely use a few sponsors and a franchise going. I think it would be amazing. I mean, how wonderful would that be? I'm an anthropology major. I'm studying, you know, the relationship. My interest is the relationship between people and their animals and people and their livestock. across cultures. And I think that, especially in America, where access to horses is so frequently barred by, financial concerns or by distance and location, like how wonderful would it be to just have a barn where you just welcome people, and you just are like, please come in, come on, we'll show children how to ride. We'll let them be around horses, and they can be welcome here regardless.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Let me add that to my list of things to do.
Ever growing.
Yes. What I feel like you have shared some very key things as far as advice for people who want to be equestrians or who are coming up in a similar situation. But if we could like package it, if what advice would you give to somebody?
One I think is, what big one for me was, don't feel bad if you don't hate yourself if you feel like your best isn't enough, because sometimes people will tell you that you're not good enough, or you're not where you should be improving more, you should be improving faster. Like, there's a lot of value, and it does take a lot of practice and a lot of work, but there's a lot of value in saying, I'm doing what I need to be doing, I'm doing my best. We all move at our own pace, we all have our challenges, and I am facing mine as best I can. Like, that would have been a hugely important thing. So I wish I had learned that, at 10 instead of at 20. Yeah. I think also be open to experiences that you hadn't considered before. Be open to trying things. You don't know where it'll lead. And then, I think really, if I were to pick a phrase, it would be kind to yourself and know your worth.
Mm-hmm. That is the key. Those are life lessons right there. Like, all of this can be applied to daily life.
I mean, that's the nice thing about riding, right? It's so much more than just a sport. It's, it is. It's life lessons over and over and over again. No matter how arrogant you are, you're going to be humbled by a horse.
Yeah.
No matter how skilled you are, you're going to have setbacks. Like, it's the best way to learn life lessons. I learned so many lessons about confidence, about forgiveness, about kindness, about patience from riding.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that is major key right there. Caitlin, do you have any other questions for her?
All the questions I wrote down, we went through them already.
I know. I was like, see, I mean, that's like the best part, when like the natural conversation, we don't have to like pull it out, because it's what you embody, and it's you have a story and you have a message, and once you let it go, like, that's it. It flows. It's out into the world. So I'm super thankful that you took the time to share your story with us, because somebody's going to need to hear it, and someone who, might not be comfortable sharing the challenges that they are experiencing, or, just simply identify with you. They definitely will need to hear it.
I mean, thank you guys so much for giving me a platform. Like I said, it's a dream of mine to, if hearing my story could just give one little girl a little bit of confidence, just a little bit more of a sense that I'm not alone. Like, then I will consider my limited social media ventures a success. So I'm so grateful to you guys for having me. And I also just want to put out there, like, I am so happy if anyone ever feels like they're dealing with any of the things that I've dealt with, they're feeling alone, if they would like to reach out to me, I am more than happy to talk to anyone. The Plus Size Equestrian on Instagram, YouTube, and Gmail as well. And then I've started a Facebook group called Equestrians of Color. Should be up and running fully in the next few days. I'd like to foster as much of a community as possible, you know, among all disciplines, for people of all races, but really to have more of a sense of community, because sometimes we just need the comfort and need the support of people who get what we're going through.
Yeah, that's the truth. That is the truth.
We didn't even have to tell you to mention your socials.
I know.
A shameless self-plug.
That is all right. That is what we are here for, to talk about ourselves, okay? That is how it's going to go
My
down.
favorite topic. Honestly, I will talk about anything, but I love to talk, obviously. But if someone's like, do you want to talk about yourself? Why, yes, I do.
That is too funny. Well, all right. We're not going to take up too much more of your time. Thank you so much for talking to us today. And we will let you know when the episode's going to go live.
No, thank you guys so much. And I mean the same to you. If there's like ever anything I can do to help support your cause and what you're doing, like I said, I believe in it so strongly, and I think it's so needed and so wonderful. So honestly, if there's anything I can do, please don't hesitate to ask. And I'm so happy to be here. So thank you.
Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Young Black Equestrians, the podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe on all podcasting platforms, as well as our YouTube channel. Head over to our social media and let us know what you thought about this episode. See you guys next week.